Hi, welcome to my channel, The Cat Sitter Diaries, Smiling Cats and Dogs. I'm Liz. I'm the owner of the business Smiling Cats and Dogs. We're a professional cat sitting business based in the Midlands in the UK. Today's video is all about when you prepare to leave your cat. So if you're going on holiday or a work trip and you're considering hiring a cat sitter, or you're getting a friend or a family member to do that for you, these points raised in this video will really help you out with the preparation for that. So I'll get straight into it in no particular order. The first one is providing an emergency contact. So this is really important. Hopefully it's somebody that's local. Obviously it needs to be somebody that you trust, and preferably it's someone that has a key to your property. Just in case there's any kind of emergency and the cat sitter needs a bit of backup, it's always really useful to have an emergency contact. The next thing is about keys. So if you're getting keys cut and they're new keys, I'd always recommend that you get them tested first. You test them in the lock that they are made for, just in case there's any issues. Just make sure that you've tested them and that they're working before handing them over, okay? Make sure your cat is registered with a vet, and also try and make sure that they're registered with a local vet as well, because if the cat sitter's dealing with an emergency and they need to get the cat to a vet very quickly, it helps that you're registered and it helps that it's a local vet, okay? Check your cat sitter's policy. This is for professional cat sitters, with dealing with any medical emergencies. So what I do is I give, during a meet and greet that I do at the beginning when I first meet the clients, and it's before they go away, we talk about this and I hand them something called a vet release form. So they put all their details in and they sign it, and there's a paragraph on it that says, I'm willing to pay up to a certain amount of money for veterinary treatment, should you not be able to contact me. Usually I would try and contact the client as soon as possible, but if I was dealing with a dire emergency and I couldn't contact them, I know that I can start treatment and I can authorise it up to a certain amount of money. So just check your cat sitter's policy on that, okay? On that subject as well, with the emergencies, make sure that you've got a pet carrier and also that you've left it somewhere visible for the cat sitter, because the last thing they'll want to do is go rooting around in the loft for it. So just make sure it's somewhere visible and it's ready to go if it's needed. This is quite an obvious one, but this has happened to me a few times. Please make sure that you buy enough food and litter for the duration of your trip, because there's nothing worse than getting to a house and there not being enough litter, you running out halfway through and having to go shopping. Now, I do encourage my clients to use family and friends first, should things run out. But I always just ask people, please just leave enough for the duration. Also, to make you aware that your cats behave slightly differently when you're away. So say like they sometimes go outside, but you've kept them in while you're away, you're going to need more cat litter than usual. So just make sure you've got plenty of supplies. If it was absolutely necessary, I do go and buy them for people, but I do charge a fee because we are very busy and, you know, it takes time out of our day to do that. So yeah, just make sure you've got enough supplies. If your cat's having medication, check again the cat sitter's policy on this. So I had a situation where a cat needed a diabetes injection. So I was trained how to do that. Some cat sitters aren't. Some cat sitters don't do medication at all. So just check that they've got that, and also let your cat sitter know if your cat is good at having tablets or not, because some cats are not. It's not easy. I mean, I've resorted to having to crush tablets down into like Licky Licks treats, for example, which usually work, or wrapped in some chicken or something like that. I'm also a microchip implanter, so I'm actually used to giving injections. So, but it is quite a specialised thing. So just make sure if your cat needs anything like that, that the cat sitter you're considering is aware of it and can do that for you. Just let your cat sitter know about any likely issues that might occur around the house. So say you've got, I don't know, a front door that is difficult to open, the lock's a bit temperamental, or you want a window opening and it sometimes doesn't shut properly, or, anything, a trip hazard or whatever. Just let your cat sitter know. Again, if they're a good cat sitter, they'll come and do a meet and greet, and you can show them those things, and also make sure that they can handle whatever issue there is. They can wiggle the key in the lock if necessary, and just any quirks like that are covered, because they do catch people out. On kind of that subject, before you leave, just check your environment, check the house for any likely hazards. So a good example is something that happened to me over the weekend. So I was looking after 2 cats, fed in different rooms. A client had left a window open, and the room where one of the cats was fed, the door had slammed during the day because it had got windy, and that cat then couldn't get to its food. So just be aware of anything in the house that might happen like that. Bear in mind that there's someone only coming in maybe once or twice a day, and just check that nothing like that is likely to happen. Just make sure that you've got those things covered. Also, just let your cat sitter know about any electrical appliances that you're likely to leave on. I do recommend switching off as many appliances as possible. Obviously not your fridge, freezer, or anything essential, but it saves on electricity while you're away. But I had a good example of this is I had a lady that left a dehumidifier on, and she hadn't told me about it. And I went in one day, I could hear all this noise, went in, and it was all leaking all over the floor because obviously it needed maintaining. The reservoir had got really full, and I was left with a very heavy leaking dehumidifier, which is not the best thing to leave unattended. So just make sure you're aware of what you're leaving on, and also tell your cat sitter what you've planned to do there. Okay. As a courtesy, I'd recommend giving your cat preventative flea treatment before you go as well. If you're in a normal cycle and you do it regularly, and it's not due around that time, please don't worry about it. But if you don't always keep up with it, just make sure that you have before you go away, because if it's, again, a professional cat sitter and they're going from house to house, that's not the kind of thing that we want to take from one household to another, and one cat to another. So as a courtesy, I'd always recommend making sure that flea treatments are up to date. Also make sure that the cat sitter knows whether your cat is neutered, microchipped and vaccinated. Microchipping, really important one, especially if your cats are going outside and say we didn't see them for a couple of days, or somebody did find your cat. It's useful for the cat sitter to know which database you're registered with and what the microchip number is. That is something you'd have been given when your cat was microchipped. I'm going to do a separate video about microchipping in the next few days. Please look out for it, because it's going to be a really interesting one, about the reasons for doing it. But yes, if you should have had your cats microchipped, because it did become compulsory in June 2024. So if you haven't already done that, please do get that done. With vaccinations, so unlike catteries, I don't say that it's compulsory for a cat to be vaccinated, but I do prefer it. Although I do use very stringent health controls when I'm going from house to house. I wear gloves, I wash my hands really thoroughly, so there's very little likelihood of anything being transferred. But if your cat is vaccinated, it is preferred. On that subject as well, if you can leave out vaccination records, insurance details if your cats are insured, and any microchip details you might have. General housekeeping, things like that. Make sure, if you haven't given your cat sitter a key and you're using a key safe, make sure that you've given the cat sitter the correct code. I know it sounds really obvious, but it's just one of the things that sometimes people get wrong. And also, if you're setting an alarm and you've got an alarm in your house, make sure that the cat sitter knows what the alarm is and whether you've turned the alarm on or off, sorry. That happened to me at the weekend. A client didn't normally leave her alarm on, and she did this weekend, and she'd never given me the code because, you know, we just hadn't done that. And I was left with an alarm screeching down the whole street. It was so embarrassing. So yeah, just make sure that kind of thing is covered. Okay. Yeah, so I've briefly touched upon this earlier, sorry, but decide whether your cats are going to stay indoors or go out while you're away. Obviously, if they're going out and the cat sitter is looking after them, it's preferable that you have a cat flap for that, because if it's up to the cat sitter to let them out, say in the morning, and then bring them back in again in the evening, cats don't always behave in the same way that they do when you're home, especially if they're quite nervous or timid. They might not always come back for the cat sitter when you want them to come back. So a cat flap, if they're outdoor cats, is really important. But if you decide to keep your cats indoors, obviously let the cat sitter know. And then they can be very, very careful when coming and going from the house to make sure that they don't escape. I certainly have my methods. I've got my rucksack that I use, which I edge in very carefully to make sure nobody escapes. One or two have over the last 7 years that I've been in business, only one or two. That largely doesn't happen. I'm very, very careful with that. Also, just make sure that your cat sitter knows about any behavioural issues that the cats might have. So if they're likely to bite or scratch, so if they hide, for example, if they don't like being scratched on their tummy, let the cat sitter know so they're not likely to need a tetanus shot at the end of the booking. Okay. And the last thing is just, again, general housekeeping. If the cat sitter's doing a meet and greet, or you're having a friend or family member come over and, see where everything is, just make sure they know where all the litter trays are, where the food is kept, where they might find cleaning materials, bin liners, things like that. Although I carry things like that around with me, and most cat sitters do, but just make sure they know where everything is. Okay. That's everything covered, so I hope you found that useful. Please do like, comment, share. If you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. So I hope you found that useful. As I've touched on earlier, I will be doing another video soon about the advantages of microchipping and the importance of it. With being a microchip implanter, I've got quite a lot of information to share, so that will come out in the next few days, so please look out for that video. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Thanks everybody. Bye bye for now.